and welcome to a long-delayed conversation with the mayor. It's been about, I think, a year and a half since we last had a conversation, and it's my pleasure to be here with Mayor Brian Arrigo once again.
Ed, how are you?
As we usually do every year, sitting here on the beach at the start of the Sand Sculpting Festival, and it's great to once again be here for that occasion and to not too long ago celebrate the 125th anniversary of the beach. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing has happened in the last year and a half. By the way.
Nothing has happened.
Nothing.
No, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. I think that's been well played out for everybody. So
Right.
we have a lot of good things, I think, that are happening now and coming up. So I think it would be good to talk about that. But first, going back to COVID, as must be said, where are we now? What's your perspective on where we in the city are at this point?
Yeah. So a couple of quick items, right? In terms of vaccination rates in the city, we have 70% of our residents have at least one dose, which is a great number. We're really excited about that. We do still have vaccination opportunities for residents. We have testing available, and we will continue to have testing available. In terms of case numbers, we have seen a little bit of an uptick in our case numbers, and as we dig into into that data, we're trying to see where our hospitalization rates are. We haven't seen any new deaths lately, so some good news, right? But the number of cases increasing the way that we've seen it, we have taken a couple of precautions just to make sure that people can remain safe. We're requiring masks now in city buildings, so we want to make sure that people understand that we're seeing cases rise a little bit. We want to take the necessary precautions, but we also all know that we do not want to shut down. We do not want to have to go back to some of the more draconian rollbacks that we've seen. So whatever we could do to try to be a little bit proactive without really hurting anybody and without really going out of our way to hurt people and make life difficult. We're trying to take those measures, but we're going to continue. Our public health team has done an amazing job throughout all of this, and we've heard a lot of good feedback from residents and from other folks, and I can't say enough about the people that have stepped up and the people that we have working for the city, the people who have volunteered for the city, who have stepped up. It really takes a community. You see the fabric of a community during challenging times, and I don't think any of us have seen challenging times like what we've been going through. And so for everyone to kind of step up and be able to rise to the occasion, rise to the moment has really been amazing. That said, our public health team, they're going to continue to look at the data, track it, analyze it, and we're going to follow the science and make sure that we're making data-driven decisions and that we're being proactive, right? And rather than being reactive, and again, making sure that we're providing everyone with the opportunity to be healthy and safe, and not at the risk of hurting people.
And in my mind, really kind of the silver lining in all of this, and we've talked about this before, having been in the trenches and some of the phone calls and making calls to people to get vaccinated and working with everybody throughout this thing, what I see coming out of this is a much stronger, more cohesive city in terms of all the groups in the city and the organizations within the city that came together to pull together to help everybody get through this thing. And I think that is going to be a huge plus for us going forward.
Oh, without a doubt. And so I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday actually about the relationships that have been forged and the communication, the level of communication that we've had, the organizations that have been maybe forced or maybe not forced, but have been communicating and working with each other in partnerships. And how do we build off of some of what's been built as we've gone through COVID? A lot of people talked about how we're flying the plane, building the plane, and writing the plans for it all at the same time, and we were doing a lot of that through the pandemic. But now is the time for us to look at, okay, how do we build off of that? There were some things that happened that were valuable to our residents. How do we extract that? Make that part of our culture going forward, make that part of what we do in City Hall, what we do in city government, and what we do you're just going forward. And then the other part of it is that we have some resources to be able to help do that, right? So with some of the federal funding that we've seen come down, some of the state funding, that's the eye that we're looking at things through, is saying, okay, what have we learned through this? What are we continuing to learn? What can we build off of? And one of the pieces that's really been important is the one that you mentioned around community engagement and the community network that we've had with organizations that serve residents in the city, and getting them together. There were regular phone calls that were happening every week. Now they're every couple of weeks. But building off of that, building off of the relationships that have been built, the partnerships that were forged, and saying, how do we bring all that together and put the resources that we've got to benefit our residents. And I'm really excited about that work. We have a lot to do, but we've definitely built a strong foundation to really help the residents at the end of the day.
Well, and that's, like I said, and to me, that's the silver lining that's coming out of it. Become much better organized to go ahead and to do that. Speaking of coming out of it, and you alluded to it a little bit ago, is that we've got money coming in from the state, which is coming from the federal government, and your approach to figuring out how do we use that money best. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got $30 million coming to the city. We've actually already received approximately $10 million of that 30. And what we're doing, and we're going to have a little bit more information coming out about this, but we want public input, right? So we want to hear from residents. We want to hear from stakeholders, organizations that have helped us through this time. And there are a couple of important kind of things that we want to make sure we're doing. We want to make sure that we're practicing good government. We want to make sure that we're leveraging every single penny that we have. And we also want to make sure that we're rising to the occasion of not only meeting, but then revitalizing our community through what's been a really challenging time. So we have $30 million. We're going to be engaging the residents to hear their feedback. We're going to be engaging other organizations and stakeholders to hear their feedback. And ultimately, we have a few things that we can spend that money on, right? So we can't do everything.
Yep.
But we can do. There's a lot that we can do, right? So there are different buckets of money that we can of things that we can do. One of them is we can use that money to provide health and guidance and support to residents or businesses. That's pretty broad and pretty big, and we could spend all of our money doing that alone, right? We can build out some of our internet capabilities for our community, our broadband and digital kind of improvements that could be made within the city limits. That money can be used on that. That money can be used on water and sewer improvements, in addition to premium pay for employees that do critical work in the city. So there's a few different buckets, but we want to keep in mind those core tenets of practicing good government, making sure that we're actually meeting the needs of our residents, and making sure that we're leveraging other funding sources, because we're getting that federal money. We've also got state money coming in. We've got local money that we can throw in. So how do we layer that money to really get the maximum benefit for the residents? And I've engaged in conversations with the city council, school committee members, other stakeholders already, but we want to have a more public input about what the priorities of the residents are and how they see us leveraging these dollars to make sure that we're meeting their needs. And so that's going to be coming out pretty soon. My plan is that we're going to have those conversations, and then sometime in the fall, we're going to have an actual spending plan. And we have 5 years to spend this money. So, we don't have to spend all that money right away. And so we definitely, now's a good time to have that money available to us to meet some of the needs that we have immediately. But we also want to make sure that we're being thoughtful about how we spend that money over the course of a few years.
Yeah. And speaking of recoveries and all, of course, jobs are part of that. I noticed the other day that the city is running a job fair at this point. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because there were quite a few jobs, I think, in that.
Yeah,
City jobs.
We ran. I think it was the first ever job fair for city employment. We did that. We piggybacked on the farmers market. We know the farmers market's a pretty active and fun place that a lot of families go to. So last week we had a job fair. We had a great outpouring of interest. We had everything from our director of diversity and inclusion position to some DPW positions that we have open, to some parking department positions and some other administrative positions. So a kind of wide range of opportunities. We've even included some school department jobs that are available. So we're really trying to, again, engage the community, let them know that these opportunities are available. Like I said, we got some great feedback from residents and from some folks that were interested in opportunities that we have in the city. It's been really important for me to really engage, again, the community. When I walked into office, we didn't have an HR department, right?
Yeah.
So we've moved from that to now having job fairs and letting people know very publicly, hey, there are opportunities here for you to, get a great job, get great benefits, come do something for a community that you love, and be part of something that's really bigger than, what folks might look at as a boring 9-to-5 job. So we're really trying to make sure that people know that there are those opportunities for growth and for advancement in the city, and we want really great people to come work for the city. So we want to open that up to everyone.
That's great. The other major thing that recently was announced, and this has a far longer lasting impact, I think, on the city and where we go, and something I know that's been near and dear to your heart because I haven't talked to you a couple of years ago about it, and that's affordable housing, the Affordable Housing Trust. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm very excited, although I'm excited about it. It's a small step in a very large challenge that we have around affordability, and I've said this before. Affordability isn't a Revere issue. It's not even a Greater Boston issue. It's a nationwide issue. We're feeling the impacts of it more than some other communities, and some of what we've seen in the growth and development in our city, which has been really positive and has had a lot of positive outcomes. There are some challenges that come along with that, and we want to make sure that the city of Revere remains a place that people can raise their family, work hard, and be able to live a nice life.
Yep.
And looking at what's happened in the region and looking at some of what we're seeing in other communities, we wanted to be proactive and say, here are the steps that we need to take, and really the first one is creating that Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and that was seeded with some money that we had in free cash, and what we've done is dedicate that money, and we'll be dedicating a portion of free cash into that fund going forward, much like our stabilization fund, which is like the city's savings account. Every year a certain percentage of money goes into that. We're going to dedicate a certain percentage into that Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and the idea behind it is that they can provide the board of that fund, which is an entity outside of city government, would be able to provide some strategies and policies and support for folks around affordable housing. That could be everything from some rental assistance to mortgage assistance and first-time homebuyer programs. Those are the kinds of things that we want to get up and running and really use and leverage the tax dollars that we've seen come in from some of the new development to be able to support the folks that need help in terms of around affordable housing. And there have been a couple of key developments that have happened that will piggyback on, right? And the opening of Revere Street, 571 Revere Street, which if there were ever a great example for the need and demand around affordable housing, that is a single shining example, and to have thousands of people who said, "Hey, I want in on this opportunity," and I think in Revere we had at least 400 or 500 residents apply, and for a short number of spots, right? And so that shows the demand that we have, again, not only in the city of Revere, but all throughout the region. And we need to meet that challenge, right? I think there's one thing that we've done pretty consistently is identify challenges and then meet them and grow from them. And that's a really important piece. And this is the next step that we've been talking about. And I look forward to continuing that really great work.
As you pointed out, that is a big challenge with anybody in the metropolitan Boston area at this point is affordable housing. And I was going to bring up the 571, but then I'm glad you did, because I think one of the great things about it is the continual work that the neighborhood developers has been doing in terms of trying to provide affordable housing for people. And for me, the other part is the location. I mean, to think about having the opportunity to build affordable housing in a location on the beach where all the high-rise development and high-cost development, if you will, is going on, to have a place like that available for people.
Yeah, and historically, I think the leadership of the city thought that, and I don't disagree with it, that at the time, market rate housing on the beach was the way to go, and that's what we needed to have happen. And that was a monumental task to accomplish, right? Yep. Took 20 years to do some of what we're seeing right now. 20 years of work went into where we are now, right? Exactly. And the thinking 20 years ago was around market rate and was around, and affordability wasn't a challenge for us to tackle at the time, right?
Rents in Revere
but
weren't
now,
that high then.
Right, exactly. Rents weren't that high. What's happening around the region wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And some of the good things that have happened, there are other costs associated with that. So to be able to say, and I understand the thinking and the logic and the thought behind, the beach is the place where there should be market rate housing. That's what we want. That's what we want to attract. We've attracted it, right? Yeah. And now there's an opportunity here, and 571 was the first opportunity really to have deed restricted affordable housing on the beach, which, again, plays into the fact that, I know people are concerned that they think that the beach is a private beach now, and that with the meters and all the development that, certain people aren't welcome down here if you don't make a certain income level. That couldn't be further from the truth. We want to make sure that the city of Revere, and especially the beach, and especially the beachfront, is a place that's welcoming for everyone. And 571 is a little bit of that flag in the sand saying, no, it's not just market rate housing here. There is affordability here. There's affordability baked into what's happening here in the city, and the beach is no longer off limits for that kind of development. And that's a good thing for the city and for the folks that want to be here, that want to continue to be here. It's important for us to be able to promote those developments.
God willing and development willing, we'll see more of those. Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to bring up is another big announcement that came not too long ago, a little while ago, by HYM with the Life Sciences building, and I remember having been on the citizens committee there, whatever that was, where we all sat around every
Advisory Group.
Advisory Group, thank you. Where the focus was on making sure that there was a good mix between residential and commercial. We all knew the commercial was going to come later on in life. And all of a sudden, here we are in the first phase of the project, getting a commercial building. You want to talk about that a little bit?
That is very exciting, right? It goes to show a lot of the work that's been done. I'm the mayor at the time, right? I'm right now, and I'm here in the spot, and a lot of times people are like, oh, there's so many great things happening in the city where we've got the wind at your back. There's a lot of good news coming out, and a lot of it is based on some of the groundwork that's been laid from prior folks. A lot of it is the folks that I've been able to surround myself with, and the Development Advisory Group was really the first time that we've ever had. Obviously that scale of development, be brought to our attention or be pitched to us. And so we thought it was important for us to really have a really thoughtful process around how we move forward. And I think one of the first meetings of that group, I said, this is history, like welcome to history. And it sounded maybe a little cliche and a little grandiose at the time, but really and yourself included, the folks who put the time in and the effort to really understand what was going to happen there and really drive it towards where we wanted it to be, and the foresight of the council to be on board with it. Almost a unanimous vote. We had one that we couldn't convey, but we had a really a great set of circumstances. Really tremendous developer who is at a very high level. We had a city that was willing to have those conversations. We had a community that was ready to have those discussions. We had stakeholders, partners willing to come to the table and kind of drive what we wanted to see happen. And we could do that a lot quicker than the city of Boston, right? So as folks know, the Suffolk Downs site is 2/3 in the city of Boston, 1/3 in the city of Revere. We were ready and able and willing to move forward at a pretty quick pace. And like I said, all thanks to the development advisory group, to the staff of the city, to the city council for their foresight. We were able to kind of push things forward. And now we find ourselves at a place where the market is dictating that lab and office and space that we have not historically seen in our city is what is going to happen, right? So to have biotech lab space in the city of Revere at the magnitude that we're going to see it at, that building is scheduled to be around 400,000 to 500,000 square feet. Potentially a $500 million investment, one building being a $500 million investment in the city for sustainable long-term growth and jobs and the opportunities that come along with it. If you think about the pipeline that we can create from our school district for the kids that are coming out of high school, going into college, being able to attract them to come work in the city of Revere, not just live in the city, but now work in the city, really says a lot for the progress that we've made and where we're headed. So we're extremely excited about it. We look forward to it. I also understand that people are skeptical, right? And so people may say, "Well, I'll believe it when I see it." That groundbreaking is going to be happening this winter. I'm in pretty constant communication with Tom O'Brien from HYM. They are very, very confident, as am I, that with the market forces and with what we have to offer, that there will be some great commercial development and great biotech investment in our city. And again, if we were to take a time machine and go back 10, 15, 20 years from now, and if we were to jump back in time and say, there's going to be a $500 million biotech investment on the Revere side of Suffolk Downs, somebody might want a straitjacket for you, Sure. So now we're at that point where it's actually a reality, and I'm really excited about it, and it's a collective effort, that makes it happen.
And that being said, for many years we used to look around and say, why can't we get one of those buildings?
Yeah.
Now we are. And getting it at this early stage of the game, I think is good news in the sense that I think it's just like you said, you build it and they will come. Once this one happens, there's going to be more, and they'll probably start coming sooner, which is going to be great for our tax base.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the tax implications, we've started to do a little bit of the rough math around the tax implications for that building, and permitting fees and other pieces that residents may not think about, but really helps us long term with our financial kind of place. We want to make sure that we're able to build a beautiful new high school, make sure that we're able to continue to add police and DPW and fire department staff, and be able to provide everyone with the resources that they need, be able to provide the taxpayers with some relief. We know that, I've talked a lot about commercial development being that sustainable piece that allows us to lessen the burden on our residential taxpayers. This kind of development gives us that flexibility to be able to say, we can start to lessen that burden a little bit, and still provide really top-notch service to our residents. So,
and not only that, but we've got, like you pointed out, a top-notch developer in HYM. If you just look at the projects that they've done in Cambridge and in Boston, and just the way they pay attention to what they're building and how they're building it in the neighborhood they're building it in. I think I would thank our lucky stars that we lucked onto them, I think, as a developer. And we didn't luck onto them. I'm sure there was work behind that. I want to move on to one other piece, major development site in the city, of course, Wonderland. And in one recent development where Representative and Assistant Speaker of the House in Washington, Catherine Clark, was able to request funding, I think maybe obtain funding, to do planning for the design of a connector station there. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, that's another exciting piece that we're looking forward to moving forward on. Representative Clark, who has been a great friend to the city, has she's ascended pretty quickly from a school committee woman in Melrose to now the top
Speaker of the
tier,
House,
the
yes.
top tier of the House of Representatives, and so as she's gone through her process of funding local projects. And helping fund local projects, she opened it up to her district, and we, put in a few requests. One of them being the connector, a multimodal connector from the Wonderland Blue Line station over to a potential commuter rail station at Wonderland, and she was able to secure funding in a House bill to be able to do that. We're hopeful that the Senate will be able to kind of get that, and I know Senator Markey and Senator Warren will be working really hard to do that. Yep. And with Representative Clark's really strong position in the House, we're pretty confident that that'll happen. But it's another step in what will be a long-term kind of plan for how we connect the blue line to the rail, to the commuter rail back there, and $4 million from the federal government, $1 million from the state. That gets us some planning money to go, and then as we leverage those dollars, we can look at potential, other partnerships to make the commuter rail stop a reality. But unlocking that potential for a commuter rail stop for people to see and benefit from what we have to offer here, and that goes up all the way up the North Shore, is again a really exciting opportunity. It brings vibrancy to the beach, gives us another opportunity for people to be able to get off the road, yep. Quite frankly, so that people aren't necessarily driving down from the North Shore and clogging up our roads, but if they can get on the commuter rail and quickly hop on and get over to the Blue Line, that we know the Blue Line is an attraction for yep. many people, and a way that they need to get into the city. If we can make that easier and lessen the amount of congestion that we have on our roads, we're going to fight for that. So.
Yeah, well, that's great. It's good to see, and I think it's one more block or whatever in the wall to kind of build that Wonderland. And we can talk about Wonderland at another time, because I think when you're getting the end. But before we close, there is one shout out I want to do to someone that was part of your administration and left a short while ago. I think he retired, and that's Bob O'Brien. From the first day I met Bob, he just was such a great person to work with. I know you and he went back, and him joining your administration, in my mind, was just, you talked about finding good people. He was one of those good people to find. You just want to say a few words? I know you probably have before.
Bob's been a dear friend. He's actually still with us on in a part-time
good.
Role because
I wasn't sure.
his value has been he's been invaluable to the city. So Bob and I go back, and not many people know the story, but Bob and I go back to a time when I was renting at 10 Ocean Ave. I was living at 10 Ocean Ave, and Bob was living there at the time. And we would strike up conversations, and I had been running for city council at the time. We got to talk to each other. I was working in the city of Somerville, so we would talk. He was really excited and interested in what was happening at Assembly Row. I knew a little bit of what was happening there, so we would have these conversations, usually outside of the building while he was walking his dog. And we struck up a friendship, and we stayed in touch. And throughout the years I was city councilor, I stayed in touch with him, bounced ideas off of him at times, and he was always a great sounding board. And when I was lucky enough to get elected by the voters, he was somebody that I called and said, I'd really like for you to come on board, and I think he was excited about that opportunity, and his legacy, much like mine, is going to be tied to what we've seen happen over the course of the last few years, and for development like what we talked about with the biotech space at Suffolk Downs, and some of the new restaurants that we've seen down the beach, the vibrancy that we've seen, the energy that's down here. Has definitely been lifted up a little bit, and a lot of that is due to Bob's work, his work and his partnerships and his relationships and his network, in making sure that people understood that Revere was and continues to be and will always be, at least in my mind, a place that is very welcoming. And a place that has a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity.
He had such a quiet, effective demeanor. Like I said, I will miss the opportunity to have conversations with him from now and then. But I did want to do a quick shout out there because he quietly slipped off into part-time, if you will, during the COVID. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this session. Hopefully we'll be able to do another one in a very short time, not another year and a half. But Brian, as always, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Ed.
I was always glad to talk with you. Until we meet again, take care.